Good afternoon, everyone. So I am Valériane Maillot from Laval University in Quebec, and I am pleased to chair this panel today, engaging first-time voters. And we have an amazing panel with like three amazing women who are going to tell you about their organizations and the really great work they're doing. So we're not in theory anymore, we're like in real practice and solutions and recommendations. So today we will have some presentations by Stacy Nordlund from Toronto Public Libraries. We will also have a presentation by Lais Maurinho from Kawi City for All Women Initiative from Ottawa. And we will also have a presentation by Elise Bolduc from Elections Quebec. So I was asked by John to do a small introduction for this panel on new voters, engaging new voters. So I'm just going to do that for a few minutes and give most of the presentation time to Elise, Lais, and Stacy, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end of the session. So, is this working? Or are you hearing me? Yeah, okay. I'm streaming in my classroom, that makes sense, fine. So just to get started, like I'm just going to say a few words on who are the first-time voters, or who you may think about when you talk about first-time voters. I'm going to do a tiny bit of theory and political participation, and I promise this will be short and sweet. I'll refer to some of the obstacles that first-time voters may face and some of the fascinating factors or ages that can help first-time voters. And I'll conclude with like two examples of research I've conducted with a lovely partner, Elections Quebec. So I'm not your typical academic. I am actually not at the ivory tower, and I prefer to be in the field and with community sector, with public institutions and everything. So I'll give an example of like how it can work sometimes to innovate in terms of public policy intervention and pair theoretical methodological skills with like great work that is done in the field and community to do some evaluative research and know what interventions that are working on actually produce as effects in terms of engagement and participation in Canada. And a few concluding words. Just when we think about first-time voters, we often think about turning 18. So we've had like quite a few panels today, and still one now on engaging young people. We also think about newcomers, so people who arrive in Canada and who obtain the right to vote, so with citizenship. So thinking about these two groups who have a change in political status when they turn 18 or when they obtain their citizenship and when they obtain the right to vote. We can also think about other Canadians that have never, for example, in election. And in the literature, we call them durable non-voters. And so there are some people that have never taken the chance to vote, even though they had the right to vote. And here, some of the literature coincides to find that the first election at which people are eligible to vote may matter, really make a difference, because from that point on, people develop the habit of voting or the habit of non-voting. So here we'll hear about some initiative to really give the chance to for new citizens or citizens who have the right to vote to really participate in their first election. So the civic volunteerism model states from the political science literature that people participate in politics because they can, because they want to, and because they have been asked. So it means that people who are participating in politics because they have resources, they have the time to participate in politics, they have money to make donations, and they have skills, or civic skills to be engaged in politics. They want to, they have the motivation to participate in politics. So either they have political interest, they have some motivation to engage in politics. They also feel that they are competent. We often hear sometimes people are like, oh no, politics is not for me, or I don't think like I'm a political person. Self-efficacy, the feeling of political competence is really important here. And finally, people will participate when they have been asked to. So mobilization, being in a social network or in organizations that do call out for the vote or like um, push people to participate, try to engage people can really be key in terms of activating citizens. Um, there are some obstacles in terms of participation. So here I'm not doing like a full exhaustive overview. I'm just giving you some examples. And for example, in terms of the resources, the first block of the civic volunteerism model I was mentioning, people may lack the time. So that this morning I was at a panel, and one of the panels was saying like many immigrant women will, struggle. They have so much to deal with, with the kids, work, being involved in the community. So it can be like a struggle to find the time to be engaged in politics. Also having the language skills. So talk about this morning in a panel as well. Being like arriving in a new country, not always having the ability to understand what is said in politics or in the community, or to speak your mind can be an obstacle to participation. And then in terms of the second block of the civic volunteerism model, lack of motivation. Well, we've seen like many surveys showing that some people are not interested in politics, and then sometimes they don't identify with the cause, like why participate in politics, what's the drive, what's the real issue that will drive me. Also, the feeling of competence. As I said, many people will say, "Well, politics is not for me," or like politics is so complicated. I just can't understand what's going on. And there are some also mobilization issues. So sometimes when we think about young people, we're like, well, young people are in many different types of networks, at university or sometimes with their friends. But the fact is that if we see that many young people don't go out to vote and they're with their peers who are not voting either, so they may have a social network, but is their social network political, politicized, active in politics? That may be a question. And here, I just want to point out that when we talk about first time voters, and notably young people and newcomers, young people and some groups of immigrants encounter specific obstacles that other people may not experience. I gave the example of language skills, and then time as well, and then a knowledge about politics. So when you arrive in a new country, you have to learn politics anew. What are the different parties? How do the elections work? For example, first past the post system versus proportional system, and things like that. The other point is that learning politics takes time and necessitates support. So we may think about different individuals going through life at different stages and encountering different obstacles. The fact is that um, getting ready for participation in election doesn't happen overnight when you turn 18 or when you obtain your citizenship. Preparation, socialization, or resocialization in politics takes a number of years and takes time for preparation. What are some of the facilitating agents and factors? Well, we can think about institutions. Institutions can implement and fund public programs, just facilitating access to resources, educational resources, funding for programs to alleviate some of the burdens of life for citizens. They can then pass bills, institutional reforms. Before we had the example in a panel again earlier where somebody mentioned that Elections Canada is now offering some of their material in different languages. So this is really key. Institutions making information accessible. We can think about like other types of electoral reforms, but also institutions can promote a culture of active citizenship and send messages that a variety of people are valued in society and their engagement is valued and necessary for democracy. Groups and organizations, and here we have three community groups and institutions today who are going to talk about their work. Organizations and groups in civil society are really key, community groups as well, to provide information and education about voting, but about different types of engagement as well, and can provide the logistical support to go out to the polling station on election day as well, and can be key and activating in terms of mobilizing people and sending out the message that it's important to take part in their democracy and on election day. All institutional factors and group initiatives and interventions can work out to really help individuals and different groups of individuals in society in terms of lowering the costs of voting or participation in society and strengthening or like highlighting what are the benefits of civic engagement. Here I'm just giving you two examples of collaborative research conducted with Elections Quebec. So we know that there are like a lot of civic education programs offered in schools. Usually these programs are offered in high school, and with Elections Quebec, we made the bet that young kids in primary school can be interested in politics and can be, interested in contributing to their society. So we did a program that was offered in different classrooms around Quebec, students from 10 to 12 years old, talking about representative democracy, about the citizen toolbox, what kind of like actions, political actions citizens and kids can also do in terms of like contributing to their community, solving problems. And so, all these interventions are great, but my question as a scientist is like, what's the impact? Does it really serve the purpose we want to have? And so we did an experimental design, offered these programs in certain schools, not in the other schools, and we compared the outcomes. And we found that there were several benefits of these programs, and notably, young people were more knowledgeable about politics after these interventions. But check this out, parents were also more knowledgeable after their kids had had this activity in school. So here we have an example of like reciprocal socialization where like kids can teach their parents or engage their parents in politics. And there was an increase in motivation to be engaged. The other program, I don't know if you've heard about the small polling stations, kids being able to vote on election day in Quebec across the province. So we did with Elections Quebec a mobilization campaign, just telling kids like across Quebec, you are invited to vote in the election as well. You have the right to vote. Obviously, not for political parties or choosing government. It was an opinion question. We were inviting at the polling station. Again, does it have an impact? Does a mobilization and a small polling station lead kids to experience electoral democracy? Yes. So in the yellow bar, we see that there's a higher number of visits, a higher percentage of visits at the polling station in the schools where they had the mobilization campaign. So we see a bump, an increase in 10 percentage points in terms of kids visiting the polling station, experiencing electoral democracy with their parents. So 10 percentage points may seem, relatively, modest. When you look at electoral behavior literature, it's a huge impact. It's a huge impact. And we did surveys with parents, and they had a whole perspective in terms of that the polling station was a welcoming place for children and that they could actually, have a nice day and a fun activity and an educational activity with their kids. So a really big payoff. Just to conclude briefly, and I'm sure I've spoken way too much as usual, youth and newcomers like face different challenges. And within youth, they're like, youth is not a monolithic group. Newcomers are not a monolithic group either. And they come with distinct challenges, and distinct challenges call for distinct solutions. And we often need to combine multiple programs, multiple resources and activities to actually affect change, actually bring into democracy, active democracy, these new first-time voters. Also, I just want to point out again, preparation and to be an active citizen doesn't come overnight when you turn 18 or when you get your citizenship. It needs to happen before elections. It needs to happen before people turn 18, before they obtain their citizenship. And one point that I want to bring forward is that a key to improving engagement practices is really paying attention to evaluation, like really gathering data. I'm a scientist, obviously I'm all about data, but like gathering data, gathering like information, retroactions on these programs and seeing like what works. And so if certain things work, we need to improve them and strengthen them and continue to fund them and offer them to the public. And if something didn't work, well, then we go back to the drawing table and we think about like how we can change them and improve them, and then continue to move on to strengthen, Canadian democracy and the work we do in our communities and with public institutions across the country. So thank you very much. And with that saying, I will give the floor to Stacey.
Okay, I don't know if I have as loud a voice, so if you can't hear me in the back, just, wave and I'll speak up. So thank you for coming today. I'm really excited to be here. And I know we have a lot of folks from outside of Toronto, so I'm going to start with a very brief introduction to Toronto Public Library. And then I'm going to go into some of the initiatives that we developed to support engagement in last year's municipal election, and then this year's mayoral by-election in the city. And I'm really pleased to see so many people here at nap time o'clock because, it's beautiful outside. It's a perfect day to just be chilling in the sun. Okay, so TPL is everywhere, quite literally. It is the busiest urban public library system in the world. Every year we have millions of users visiting our branches and taking advantage of our online spaces. So we have 100 physical library branches on this slide, and we also have our online spaces. And just to share some stats from 2021, almost 1.2 million people were registered card holders at Toronto Public Library, and we had more than 4 million branch visits. And just to put that in context, in 2021, the library was closed for about the first 4 months or so as a pandemic response. So this is actually only covering about 2/3 of the year. And so the key to borrowing items and accessing electronic resources is a library card. Membership is free if you live, work, go to school, or own property in Toronto. Any card holders in the audience today? Yes, I love it. Okay, also myself. And beyond that, all of our programs are 100% free to attend and don't require a library card. I could probably spend the entire hour talking about TPL's amazing programs and services. So come talk to me afterwards if you want to learn more. But right now, I will dive into our civic engagement activities. So the initiatives today that I'm going to be talking about are in service of TPL's strategic priority to provide the vital ingredients for democratic society. This is one of TPL's strategic pillars. And we're developing our services with the aim of empowering Torontonians to engage in civic life, and also for TPL to be recognized as a community hub where Torontonians can become more informed and engaged in democracy, in the electoral process, and local issues. And through all of our programs and services, an equity lens is employed, as we are committed to breaking down barriers to access and increasing inclusion, particularly for equity-deserving groups and vulnerable populations. And I'll also mention that partnerships are key. So collaborations with organizations outside of TPL are really essential for success as we strive to achieve our civic engagement goals. And the programs on the next few slides are examples of some of these partnerships. So all of these pieces come together to support our major goal of transformational change to help make our city's residents successful, resilient, and well. So we launched Celebrate Democracy in October of last year through generous funding from the Toronto Public Library Foundation and in partnership with Mass LBP. And the goal was to boost civic engagement and awareness of the electoral process. The Celebrate Democracy webpage features reading lists for all ages and links to additional resources. And last year, it was also used as a place to promote relevant programs leading up to the election. The page also features recordings of some online programs, and here are a couple that you can check out from the website. So one is called Your Voice, Your Vote, Why Local Elections Matter. And this was a conversation where folks talked about, what causes voters to sit out of municipal elections and whose voices are missing. And we also had a youth-focused program, Campaign Matters, with Tiffany Ford, where she spoke about her campaign experiences dealing with anti-Black racism on the campaign trail, and how and why she developed her campaign material to raise the importance of civic engagement for young people. And we also held many in person programs. So with Mass LBP, we had a Celebrate Democracy launch event, demystifying the process. And this was aimed at making the processes and mechanics of running for election, building a campaign, and volunteering for a campaign more accessible and transparent. With Toronto elections, we held 9 sessions where participants learned about the different levels of government, accessible voting options, what to expect when you go and vote, employment opportunities, vote tabulator demonstrations, and basically all that key information for new voters and first time voters. And of course, the Democratic Exchanges vote pop ups, which were used in a variety of spaces, in a variety of ways, with various ages. There's an image on this slide with a couple of young future voters. And overall, more than 40 of our branches participated through programs and activities for Celebrate Democracy. Here are some of our reading list materials displayed. We had inviting branch book displays in a variety of spaces, and these were for adults, teens, and children. We also had a Vote for Fictional Mayor children's activity. This is where 4 fictional candidates for mayor were developed. They're all vying for the role of mayor of Torontoville. And this was complete with avatars and profiles for each of the candidates. And children were invited to vote online or in person. A number of branches set up displays with boxes where people could post their votes. There was really excellent uptake across the city and really engaged a significant number of kids and families in the process of democracy. So over 1,200 votes were cast. And this was a great way to connect with children and their parents and with newcomers and new Canadians. And we just heard from Valérie Anne about how you engage with the children and then you connect with the parents. And then as part of the Celebrate Democracy initiative, there was the Know Your Vote TO website. Again, we worked with Mass LBP. And this is a website where members of the public learned about the candidates running to represent their ward on city council and those vying for the role of mayor. And Know Your Vote TO ensured that members of the public had access to a nonpartisan, free public platform to learn where candidates were standing on key issues. So all candidates were invited to share their policy ideas on 5 separate issues: housing, climate action, getting around the city, taxes and the cost of living, and policing and community safety. And the candidates' pages received over 39,000 page views over the course of our Celebrate Democracy period, which was a couple of weeks in October from 2022. And I will share our most recent initiative. This was this month. We collaborated with the Local to make their online candidate tracker available in branches as a handbook. This was a way of increasing access to information, especially in areas with historically low voter turnout. So if you're not familiar with the Local, it's a local online magazine, and the candidate tracker features fact-checked biographies and platform summaries for all candidates running for mayor. And all library branches across the city received 2 copies for customers to access and use in the library, and they will be available until the election is over. And branches were using them for book displays as part of a vote pop-up activity. They've also been used in programming. Last night, I was at a branch in Scarborough, and there was a voter information session that took place with the Scarborough Civic Action Network. And the handbook was made available during the program for customers to be able to access. And so these are just a few of the ways that TPL has engaged our communities. We've heard from like the theory and the evidence side, and so now we're seeing in practice, how we're making this work. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to connect afterwards. I know we're going to have a discussion here. So thank you so much.
everyone. Good afternoon. Very excited to be here talking to all of you. Thank you, John and the team for inviting me. My organization was already intending to attend because it's our main work is around elections, but it was a great surprise to be invited to be on a table. And so thank you for being here and listen. So I will start. And first, this session's title is Engaging New Voters. But for us at Cowie, is about engaging new and people that don't vote too, especially people that don't vote because they can't. So what they can do to participate in democracy. So I will start talking about me. Bear with me, it's relevant. So I am a Afro-Latina woman from Brazil. I have indigenous heritage. I have a history of activism from family. My parents are activists in Brazil too. I'm a journalist. I'm an immigrant. I'm a researcher and I work at Cowie as Communications and Civic Engagement Coordinator. Why this is relevant? At Cowie, City for All Women Initiative, we work with women, priority. Our priority are women, and women from very different backgrounds. We have newcomers, we have temporary residents. That is my case. I'm still a temporary resident. We have students, we have seniors, we have people that have families, people that live in by themselves. So it's important for us that our team also reflect this diversity of people that we serve. So I am part of this diverse small team that are made of 5 women um, across different religions and sexual orientations and colors, race. We have languages. So we are a very diverse team, even being a small one. Cowie, as I said, is a organization that works with women, for women, and from women. We are a membership based. So women from 18 years old to the end of life, any ages can be part of Cowie. And this allows us to hear from a different perspectives from women. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of losing my concentration, but I'm okay. I told my colleagues last week that I had a small health hiccup, so I'm still under the weather. So I'm sorry if I'm rambling sometimes. So we are a feminist organization, and we also have men not in membership but participating in our programs as allies. And mainly, we run 2 civic engagement tables. One that is a second, a development from a table that is about voting, that is making voices count. So this was a project developed with the community health and resource centers in Ottawa. And this was to bring together resident leaders that will discuss about their priorities, their concerns, and how we can um, tackle these concerns by participation. And the second table is called Mamawe, that is together in the Anishinaabe Algonquin language. So it's women fighting poverty together. So this program is just women, this table, and we every year has have a priority and we talk about it and suggest policy changes to tackle poverty in all its expressions, homelessness, or low quality of food, non-access to food, and so on. So we have two main moments. Our bigger moment is election time. We are a municipal realm, so we talk about municipal politics. So in our elections trainings, what we talk about is why you should vote and how to make a difference when you can't vote. I was listening to my colleague talking about kids and other people in other tables too, how important it is to engage kids, that they can engage their parents or older siblings or other relatives. In our case, our engagement to people who can't vote are for adults. So people like me that can't vote, live here but can't vote, what we can do. So that's why I started with myself. Usually, I am one of the facilitators in these trainings, and one thing that I say first is that. So after saying all things about elections, why it's important to vote, I say, and you know what? I can't vote. So look at what I'm doing here. I'm talking to you about voting and how to mobilize other people if you can't. How to tell people that can vote how important it is to vote, especially if you want to and you can't. And in between elections, we have our civic engagement tables that I told a little bit before, and the Women's Action Committee, that is basically a group of women that terrify city council in a good way. So we are the eyes of the people in the council. So we have this historical peach scarf, and when this group of sometimes small, sometimes bigger group coming to a discussion in city council and people see the peach scarf ladies, they're like, oh no, here they are. Even if you can't talk, just our presence put some pressure. And our pressure is always to get things changed. So right now we have in Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken, since 2019, we had an emergency declared from homelessness emergency. And even with this emergency, nothing much was done. And the first step to tackle this problem was one Victory for Cowie and other organizations that work in coalition, that was to secure a minimum of $15 million in the budget for affordable housing. It's been a long time, if you think in 2019, and now we are in 2023, and none has increased. So this is our next step in between elections, is guarantee that we have an increase into this amount of money for affordable housing and other issues that we identify in our civic engagement table. So the way the civic engagement tables work is we get all these resident leaders and we talk about the issues. What are they worried about? What do you like to see the city doing to make things better? And how we can put pressure. So in the last election, our action was to build a pledge to candidates to sign to about housing and transit. That in Ottawa we have one of the most expensive transit fares. And the third thing was social services that get cut all the time when you need more money. Is the low hanging fruit that people take the money off. So we talked about these priorities and what do you want the candidates to commit to. And now we are going to the second part of this. Most of those who were elected agreed to our pledge. So now in the second semester, the Peach Scarf ladies will go together and go to council and say, hey, you signed this pledge. How's this going? We want to see what you are working to achieve these proposals that you have. So it's very fast. I think you could have an idea of what's our work, why you are annoying sometimes, but it's necessary. So thank you for listening. And if you want to talk later or send me an email anytime, please feel free. And thank you.
Bonjour. La présentation est en anglais, mais moi, je vais parler en français. Alors, je vais aller rapidement pour avoir plus de temps pour les questions. Alors, moi, je suis formatrice dans l'équipe d'éducation en démocratie et à élection Québec. Je suis généralement toujours sur le terrain, donc on a une bonne connaissance de ce qui se passe sur le terrain et aussi avec les différents partenaires avec qui on collabore. Alors, parlant de partenariat, nous, on a la mission de faire la promotion des valeurs démocratiques et on travaille en partenariat avec les chercheurs, avec l'Assemblée nationale du Québec. On a différents partenariats aussi avec les organismes. On se base beaucoup sur les recherches qui sont faites et aussi votre connaissance de l'environnement. On se promène sur le terrain, on travaille avec les écoles, donc on a tout ce qui se passe. Alors, la démocratie, nos travaux sont basés sur 4 principes. La démocratie, ça commence tôt. La démocratie, ça s'apprend. La démocratie, ça se vit et ça se partage. Alors, le premier principe, la démocratie, ça commence tôt. Avec Yann, on a parlé tantôt avec le programme électeur en herbe pour le vote, le petit bureau de vote. Alors, juste pour votre information, en 2022, il y a eu au-dessus de 140 000 personnes qui ont voté au moment du programme. Ensuite, on dit que la démocratie, ça s'apprend. Alors, comme les mathématiques, les sciences, c'est possible de présenter des activités en éducation démocratique à travers des matières, que ce soit l'univers social, l'histoire. Donc, on a bâti un répertoire de ressources sur le site web d'Élection Québec qu'on appelle la zone d'éducation démocratique. Alors, ça vous permet d'aller chercher des activités pédagogiques ou éducatives. Il y en a en français, il y en a en anglais, donc il y a quand même un bon répertoire. C'est bon pour les organismes, c'est bon pour les enseignants, ça peut être bon aussi pour les parents qui veulent faire des activités avec les enfants. On a également dans notre troisième principe qui est la démocratie, on a plusieurs programmes éducatifs. Alors, vous avez le programme la démocratie à l'école, qui est en partenariat avec l'Assemblée nationale. Alors, nous, on se promène partout à travers les écoles, on vient soutenir les conseils d'élèves, on donne de la formation. Ça leur permet vraiment de faire entendre leur voix dans l'école. Alors, le matériel aussi, c'est vraiment le programme qu'on s'offre. Ensuite, on a l'autre partie du programme électeur en herbe qui est vraiment le vote d'utilisation électorale en classe. Alors, les jeunes ont l'occasion de voter pour 1000 tables candidats aux élections. Et aux dernières élections, en 2022, 238 programme. Alors, ce programme-là, c'est vraiment du troisième cycle primaire à l'école secondaire. Ensuite, on a une nouvelle activité qui est le budget participatif. Ça se fait présentement dans les municipalités. Alors, nous, on travaille pour faire descendre dans les écoles. Ce que ça permet, ce programme-là, c'est d'avoir un budget qui est alloué pour un projet. On ne sait pas c'est quoi le projet, mais on a un budget d'alloué pour ce budget. Le comité du projet va rencontrer les élèves, pose des questions, regarde c'est quoi qu'est-ce qu'on pourrait faire avec ce projet-là. Vient en comité, développe des projets à partir de cet instant-là, retourne, fait voter les étudiants pour un projet et ensuite on met le projet en œuvre. Ça, c'est intéressant parce que ça permet de mobiliser autant les adultes que les jeunes. Ça permet encore une fois de faire entendre la voix des élèves dans l'école et ça permet d'adresser les préoccupations qui se vivent dans l'école. Ensuite, on a le programme À ton tour. Alors, ça, c'est vraiment les jeunes de 17 ans qui reçoivent une lettre à la maison pour les inviter à s'inscrire sur la liste électorale. On vient leur mentionner qu'ils ont le droit de vote, tout ça, mais ils ont aussi un code d'accès à du contenu exclusif sur le site web de jeunes immigrants, ça peut être vox pop, ça peut être accéder à des débats, une façon de s'impliquer dans la société. Alors, ce contenu qui peut accessible directement en allant sur le site justement dans voir la lettre. Et le programme dont je vais vous parler plus en détail, c'est le vote au Québec. Alors, ça, c'est vraiment un programme qui vient démystifier le processus électoral. Alors, dans plusieurs volets, on vient faire la promotion de la participation électorale, puis on développe une connaissance de tous. Alors, c'est le programme de vote au Québec qui s'adresse aux nouveaux arrivants, aux nouveaux citoyens, aussi aux jeunes qui sont sortis du système scolaire. Moi, c'est maintenant on le faire en éducation citoyenneté parce qu'ils prennent un autre chemin. On a aussi des adultes qui vont dans le programme de réinsertion professionnelle, donc on vient aussi de cet atelier-là dans ce là. Alors, Je vote au Québec, c'est un atelier participatif. Toutes les personnes qui sont présentes vont devoir participer aux différentes activités. Ce qu'on fait, c'est la première chose, une carte électorale participative. Alors, les personnes qui participent ont l'occasion de devenir candidats l'espace d'un instant et on va expliquer le processus électoral à travers ça. Et ensuite, on transforme la classe en bureau de vote. On utilise le véritable matériel de l'élection Québec et on fait une élection mystère. Alors, il y a des participants qui deviennent du personnel électoral, puis les autres qui font le vote, naturellement, donc on alterne. Ça permet aux gens qui n'ont pas encore le droit de vote de se familiariser, de se sentir compétents aussi pour voter candidatement. Cette atelier-là est importante, qu'elle je vais l'avoir tout à l'heure. Je ne vais pas trop dans le détail, mais vous avez exactement tout le matériel qu'on a besoin pour faire vivre l'atelier de vote au Québec. Et le dernier volet pour le vote au Québec, on envoie une lettre aux citoyens pour les féliciter de leur citoyenneté. On les informe qu'ils ont maintenant le droit de vote, puis on leur demande de donner des informations. Ça, c'est une lettre qu'ils vont recevoir citoyens. Et le quatrième principe, qui est la démocratie, ça se partage. On pense que la démocratie, c'est vraiment la responsabilité de tous, que ce soit la famille, l'école, la communauté, l'organisme, l'institution, peu importe. Alors, ce qu'on a fait dernièrement, c'est qu'on a travaillé à aller chercher tous les ancrages en éducation et citoyenneté dans le programme de formation du Code territoire pour permettre à la communauté et aux institutions de venir se greffer avec leurs activités, d'offrir aux enseignants la possibilité de développer des compétences citoyennes en même temps que leur matière. Et on est en train de travailler aussi pour développer une vision d'un profil commun. Quoi un jeune à la à l'autre de l'âge de ça, c'est quoi son profil qui fait pour être un citoyen démocratique. Fait qu'on travaille là-dessus, on a un événement qui est prévu à l'automne, fait qu'on vous a aussi entendre parler de cet événement-là, cet histoire va être faire. Alors voilà, ça fait le tour. Je vous remercie. Si jamais vous voulez des informations supplémentaires, des questions, pour consulter, j'ai le mot et c'est la zone d'éducation. Merci.
So for us at Cowie, the first step is the civic engagement, and especially in thinking about the keynote speaker that we had before, many people are completely disenchanted about politics and voting. So when to show or remind them that when you are involved in your community and you have your eyes open from what needs to be better or what is good that maybe needs to be enhanced, the natural step for them is how can I make a change? And it's with popular pressure, of course, and also voting. So it's a continuum for us. And in my presentation, I talk about a little bit about it, like how election year is a big year, but our foundation is in the non-election years. Yeah, at least from our point of view, it's the continuum. Yeah.
It's the same for us too. They are voting, but on travaille beaucoup de choses autour de ça aussi pour développer des connaissances, pour les amener à s'engager, leur présenter des façons de s'engager aussi dans la société. Fait que on va vraiment plus loin que ça. Puis nos programmes fonctionnent à l'année, qu'on soit en année électorale ou pas. Là, il y a beaucoup de nos programmes qui fonctionnent quand même.
Okay, I'm just going to add one point. Yeah, because I live in Toronto and so many folks here are not Canadian citizens. So as the library, we're trying to engage everyone and we can't just focus on people who are eligible to vote, right? So we're engaging people to find ways to get involved either through voting or through other ways through their community. Yeah, I feel like I have a lot to say, but I'll just leave it at that.
If I can just add,
In Kawi, we have some partners that work, do the shelter work. So one of the things that we do with these partners is exactly reach to this population and listen to what they see as their problems too. And surprisingly, it's not just their immediate situation. Most of times they talk about like bigger issues that would be beneficial to everyone. So sometimes we see someone on the street and you think that they are not connected to what's happening, and they are very much. So it's really good that you brought this up, that all of us here that work with civic engagement, we could keep an eye in this population because they have many insights to give.